Welcome everyone to the latest in our Innovate for Success networking forum events. Great to see you all again, and great to be able to welcome several new members this month. We've got some teams from Imerys and from Quaker Houghton who've joined us. For the existing members, I hope you've all had your coaching sessions since we last met, and I hope you got something useful out of that, hopefully to set you up for today's event. How are we going to tackle the subject? Well, it's a notoriously tricky one. It's easy to say, well, it just comes with experience, but how to shortcut that experience? Well, one way is to bring some case studies to our forum, examples from our own experience of good or poor business judgment, either things we've watched from afar in our other businesses or things we've experienced ourselves in our own careers. To help us explore this subject, we're privileged to be joined today by Tamara de Gruyter, who is President of Marine Systems Division at Wärtsilä. And I'm going to hand over to Jim, who's going to introduce. Jim.
Thanks very much, Andy. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Tamara. I've known Tamara since her time in China a few years ago. And I was very impressed with her as a professional manager of people as well as a technologist. And we had a discussion before this event, and we both agreed the best way of introducing Tamara would be for her to introduce herself. So I'm going to hand over in a moment for Tamara to do that and tell us a little bit about it. So she's going to talk about business technical judgments that she's made, some of which she may consider good or not quite so good. And at the end of the 10 minutes, we'll invite you guys to throw any questions at Tamara. I'm sure she'll be able to handle them in a very interesting way. So really, that's as much as I need to say, and I'd like to hand over to Tamara. Over to you.
Thanks, Jim, and it's a pleasure being here, and then thanks for having me. So when Jim approached me, I thought it's an interesting topic, so why not? And I will be joining the whole session, so I'm also quite curious. Maybe a few words about me and a few words about Wärtsilä. Wärtsilä is a global leader in advanced technologies and complete lifecycle solutions for the marine and energy market. But what does that really mean? Actually, as you can see on the picture, our history is we're a Finnish company. We make engines. And over the years, we started to use these engines both in ships as well as on land in power plants. And Wärtsilä has grown by buying more products, especially for the marine industry. And you see a picture from early in my career, propellers. You still see lips on the propeller, and Wärtsilä acquired lips in 2002, so it became part of the Wärtsilä family. Wärtsilä has around 18,000 people worldwide. We are in 200 locations and 70 countries. And that is very much related to the shipping industry being global. So there's ports all around the world, and we need to serve our customers, because not like a car, you can bring it to the garage. We have to go to the ship if there's a problem. My background is I'm a naval architect. I started my career a bit more on the commercial side, sales support, project management, and then I moved into managerial roles. I have been 7 years in Asia, where I have been leading 2 of our joint venture companies, one where we made propellers and one where we made engines. And I've also spent 1.5 years in Singapore in a company that we then recently acquired. And I'll come back to that because that's one of the bad judgments, I would call. I came back in 2015 to Europe, to the Netherlands, where I'm from, and I have had various vice president roles. And since March last year, so almost a year, I'm in my current role, where I'm actually not anymore involved with engines and propellers, but a lot of our other products that we have bundled in a division called Systems. And I'm also heading our so-called divestment unit, which we call portfolio business. So there you could say all the bad judgments of the past ended up to make sure that we now get rid of it. A few things to share. I think as a leader, we have to realize that every day we make judgment calls, and we might not always have the full picture to make a decision. And yeah, that inevitably leads to the fact that you make incorrect decisions or bad judgments. Ideally, we would like to collect all information, but we not always have sufficient times. And then it also means taking a risk and thinking, what is really the absolute minimum information, or critical information, I would rather say, that you really need before you can make the decision, because you also cannot wait forever. And I think a lot of decisions are about here and now, but the most challenging decisions I found are those that involve the future. Where do we place our bet for future business expansion? Where do we place our bet for future business model? Where should we have our manufacturing? And that also brings in, it's not only a decision with the facts of today, it's also a decision with the facts of the future and how the market develops. And that's very difficult, especially in this volatile world we're living in.